Hi, David.
Hi, Sarah.
Lots of people say that they can see energy or feel energy or sense energy. Some people hear things. There are many different ways, and they don't always call it energy. There are many different ways that people interact with more subtle experiences than our gross physical senses. And
Yeah,
I think it's very difficult to distinguish, you know, are they even seeing the same thing? Are they talking about the same thing? How do we manage when we have so many words and ways of describing something, and it's difficult for us to confirm even what's going on? I thought you might be able to help us kind of untangle some of that.
oh boy, this is quite a big genre, but we'll give it a shot.
Yes.
So there's one classification that definitely covers everything, and that's sensories. Okay, um, depending on um, a little bit depending on what our our lineage is or what our parents have gone through, will depend on what we'll actively more coherent with. Okay, so
Mhm.
that's why some people are more feelers. Feelers tend to be more the empathic people. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
of
They
course.
feel everything.
Yeah, and they often don't realize that they're picking up um, the energy fields, and that's there's one. Unfortunately, empathic people isn't really just that, it's also people who are nurturing. So, although people who nurture, because most people don't think that there's actually a nurturing entity, I guess, or whatever, or identification, but so everyone who's generally empathic gets put into that nurture. The nurturing goes into the empathic version too,
So
but
they tend to become the nurturers
yeah,
because
yeah,
they can feel everything.
because I can feel everything. And it's also where we will, because if you feel certain senses, then you try to almost help people in those senses, like highly empathic people, highly um, sensitive people,
Yeah.
people who are nurturers. And because nurturing and empathy are also a form of channeling, it's like we're geared in to picking up certain identifications, and it has its own language. Then we go into it, and we try and discern. We have all these different discernments that are automatic for us because we've figured it out even as kids. And then you'll sort of specialize in that genre a bit, but with the same effects, you won't often talk about it with some people, and some people you will, because sometimes you identify pretty quickly who you can talk about that with and who you can't.
Because people who aren't empathic don't understand that language at all, I guess.
No, that they don't. They got no idea. And sometimes I think, oh man, you're talking gobbledygook. I got no idea, or it's like you're talking crap,
And do
because
you find that different empathic people tend to be able to feel the same thing? Because one of the things I've noticed sometimes is that, one psychic person or healer or intuitive will look at one person, they'll always find something, but they all find different things about the person.
yeah,
And
that's
and
right.
that's quite confusing at times.
It is because sometimes even highly empathic people can't discern what is physical energy and what is your spirit energy or your conscious energy, your light energy, and they may not even be aware of it. And I know it took me a little while when I was a kid to figure out what was spirit energy, what was conscious energy, what was light energy, um, and even telepathic energy.
And maybe if I think about regular human life, we also, whatever we look at, we actually always see it differently. So if you and I were
We
looking at
do.
the same thing, there's a lot that we would see
Oh,
differently, and we
we'd
didn't
see,
know that.
yeah. So the people who see energy more with their eyes open,
Hmm.
they can generally see more what you would classify universal energy, and they can generally see the matrix.
Can you say a little bit more about that? What that means?
Okay, so everyone's a little bit aware, got a bit of a gist about universal energy. Yeah, it goes through the whole naturally, it goes through
Yes.
the whole universe, but it's not. Um, then there's also Earth specific energy. Okay, Earth specific energy tends to be like physical energy. Okay, and it's quite hard and it's quite harsh. It is also overpowering, and it's the one that when we first feel energy, sometimes that's the one that we might be most cohesive with or able to sense the most. Okay,
And
but
that earth energy, is that the energy that indigenous people tend to be very connected to?
not always. No,
Not necessarily.
no.
Okay.
Indigenous people are more, they're more connected to, although it's an earth energy, they're more connected to a universal energy.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's completely different because it's that that energy that indigenous and almost indigenous, it's why they're in harmony with nature.
So that's the universal energy, which has that kind of softer, more harmonious
Yeah, it
quality
does.
to it,
And
and
it's a lot
includes
more,
the earth. It includes
yeah,
everything.
it includes everything, but it's not as harsh. And it's because just plain straight out physical energy is very, very sometimes because this like this just to confuse the matter, there's earth, say earth energy that has elements of spirit and conscious in it. Okay. And then there's elements of earth energy that has no basically hardly any or none, or convenient, what you might call convenient consciousness. you know
So it
um,
sounds like a lot of human beings might be connected to that kind of earth energy, and that's what
exactly.
makes them either operate in that convenient to them but not necessarily good for the
Exactly.
universe. Is that
Exactly.
that's what we're talking about? So they're
It's a bit
running off
like
a different.
it's a bit like um, um, I guess corporational corporational energy, if you like, because it's like they all want they all want to make this huge profit, and they'll tell you that it's all good for everybody, but often it's not really good for large sectors of communities, because they're dis often they might dishouse certain people, or they're creating lots of environmental vandalism and that sort of thing,
So why would some people
or
be
they create.
connected? Why
Sorry,
would some people be connected with that earth energy more, and then other people are more connected to universal energy? That might be a difficult
it
question.
has a little bit to do what your parents have gone through.
Uh-huh.
So if your parents have been in certain circumstances where, um, because we've all been our parent, like let's face it, everybody's parents have been in some circumstance that has, like, you put into some circumstance where you don't have room to wiggle. Yeah, it's like you toe the line or you might end up dead
Yep.
in the past. You know what I mean? Like, and there's certain things you toe the line or you're going to be excommunicated, and you then in that situation you would have nowhere to live.
Yep. And
Yep.
when our parents grew
Or
up, our parents probably grew
yeah,
up their early years in the Second World War, for example, which
exactly. And
would have
then
put
and
tremendous
then
pressure
there's,
on them.
and then without going in, then there's certain things like, even you don't even have to go back that far, where you wouldn't have um, like certain religions weren't, you would never think of, like, if you're a Catholic, there was no way you would
Yep.
think of ever. marrying a Protestant, or vice
So there
versa.
were very strict boundaries around
Yeah,
people's lives that weren't
and
really
all
natural.
those things, and they're not natural, and they create a lot of boundaries, and it makes people's energy basically contract and restrict, and it goes deep inside them, and then certain parts of their other energy, then as soon as you do that, it gets pushed out, and then a lot of their sensories are pushed outside, so their sensories are more oversensitive to certain things that are going on.
And then, so then they rely more and more on the physical senses
Then
rather
that's
than the subtle senses.
exactly, exactly. So, and then people who can, I mean, there's are some people, there's other people like myself who are a bit weird and can see, can go around and see ley lines and different portals and all that other stuff that we do when we go to certain areas, and it's just like going on a field trip and having fun, and we can
Yeah.
feel them, sense them, and feel the ones that are good and feel the ones that are very um, harsh, and don't feel good. They've come from. You can even feel where certain parts where there's been massive slaughters or wars or things like that. You know,
So is that a different kind of feeling? How would you describe the way you perceive or sense energy?
um, how I perceive it
Yeah,
was.
like, we were talking about the feelers, the empaths. We were talking about people who see
Yep,
energy with their eyes open.
yep.
How would you describe your way? Like, you're using multiple senses for
Yeah,
sure.
I didn't always see energy with my eyes. I didn't see grids and all that, and like the Matrix and all that with my eyes open when I first started. I mean, I
But you
could
could
see
see it with your
ghosts.
eyes closed.
Yeah, yeah, I could see them with my eyes closed. But I mean, I could, if I was walking along and all of a sudden I'd see a ghost walk through the door or whatever, I could see that with my eyes open,
Yeah.
which is a bit weird, I know, but I mean, that's
But the
how
thing
you
is,
want.
I think it's actually much more common than we tend to let
Oh
on.
yeah, it
People,
is. I mean, I've met so many people who can just see that sort of thing with their eyes open all the time.
yeah. Whereas
So,
I can't. I don't see things like that. I I don't even know how to describe it. It's more like I know things, but it's a knowing it's not in my head at all. And I can also see things, but I can't see the things that you see. I see different things, and they're not very visual. They're like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a deep visual, but it's
yeah,
not. And that's just the way. And I can see things then that are very powerful to see. I don't use that a lot. I use more this kind of knowing and a sort of sensing with my whole being, which isn't a
mm.
feeling. I can't describe it as a feeling. I don't know how to
Sometimes
describe it.
sometimes when you relax and you go into um, a different conversation with yourself, or you could have even done it with, like, even when you're in a meditation, sometimes if you're nicely grounded, it's easier to pick up what is there than if you're not grounded. Because if you're not grounded, your energy isn't moving, so it's not picking up the different type of sensories. But of course, I mean, what you can see now compared to when I met you, there's a lot more stuff you see, and there's a lot more stuff you feel, and because
And what I
before,
notice, if
but,
I'm not grounded, it's like there's a gap in the connection. Whereas if
yeah,
I'm grounded, it's like I can experience it from here, but all
mm.
the way to wherever it is. Whereas if I'm not grounded, it's almost like I'm here and I'm separated from things. So that's really different.
And the other thing is sometimes sight can be more just in your head, whereas sensory is more about you use your whole entire body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm more using something that my body's a part of it, but actually a minor part of it. I'm more using something that's all around me,
Yeah,
and it's
it's
like it can
completely
sense things
peripheral.
in many different ways.
Yeah. Because we learn um when you've done a lot of energy work, you learn about a lot of peripheral sort of stuff, peripheral energies that all affect you, and
It's
you
like you're
learn.
reading those peripheral energies
You
all the time
are, yeah, all
without
the
even
time.
thinking about it.
Yeah, you don't even think about it, and it's like, um, I know the last time I was in Italy and we were going through this place, it was really beautiful. And we're going down into this resort town, and as soon as we started to go down into it, I thought, oh my god, there's some tragedies that happen here.
Hmm.
I mean, it wasn't, you know what I mean? It's it's strange how much you can pick up. And
Well, some people I know are very sensitive to those kinds of things.
yeah, I mean,
You are
when we
very.
when we have workshops, we meet so many people like that, and which is good because um, it help it helps you to not be oversensitive to certain things too, because there's a certain amount of things we don't need to be oversensitive to, because it makes you a little bit, you can't get out and live too much,
It
like.
makes people precious in a way, doesn't it? Too
Mm.
precious about themselves, and that's not. It's not. Yeah, it's not a helpful way of being in life.
No, and there's a lot of people who can't um, stand more than like 5 or 6 people in a room,
Yeah, and
which,
sometimes they're going to be more than that.
yeah, there are,
You're
and
constantly
which
running
makes
away.
it,
Yeah, I
yeah,
found it very important. Somebody once told me not to be oversensitive. That being sensitive in that way wasn't a good thing. Being sensitive
no,
where it brings out gifts is a good thing. But I think you can like overprotect your sensitivity and make it something special that it's not.
that's true. And I mean, excuse me. Years ago, there's no way I could have stood in front of 1,000 people and talked for, all day and enjoy the whole day. Once it would have been like I could have done it for a while, and then I'd almost run away. Whereas now, I can talk to them all day. In fact, you got to pull me off the stage, but because if you've got a subject that you love so much, you can talk about it forever, can't you? And
Yeah.
if it's something that you've got something that you want to pass on that helps people, you want to be helpful. You want to enhance people's lives, so that
So, sorry, go on.
when um, we find these people who can see, we have to make sure too that what they're seeing is more grounded too, because if it's not grounded, um, and we ask people to look through their head, they'll often see that they got like a portal. It's like this great big circle, and it sits out where it's where your consciousness, and your consciousness just isn't in your head, but it's like where we funnel. Okay. And people will be funneling in all this information, which comes from who knows where. And it's not always beneficial, you know. So that's why we ask people to look through, close their eyes, look up through there, and if they see that this is all open, then it basically means a lot of your energy is going out and going and then coming back in, which it's not always your information, it's not relevant to you, but you can think it is. And so there's a lot to learn about, how to sense, how to feel. And like, it's one of those things that even in the first time when we're doing workshops, we show people how to use all these different senses, because there's so many different senses that are disconnected and they're just sitting out here, and or there's ones that are buried. And if you're there buried, then there's everything can be going on right in front of you and you don't notice anything. It's like everyone's telling you you're the greatest person in the world, but behind your back they're taking, you know, it's and you don't even notice it. So we
Mm.
have we need to turn certain sensitivities so it's more like we use um, lots of different senses all at the same time, so that we have different conversations with people, so that you can figure out, sometimes it shows or automatically shows people's intentions straight away. that you wouldn't have picked up before, or because sometimes people are trying to be helpful to you, but if you've got them closed down, it's like no one can help you because one, you don't know if that person's trustworthy or not. Yeah. And the opposite, you can, if certain things are sitting way outside, you can be taken advantage of. And that's why we like to help people build this nest egg of all their sensories so that they're more available. So it doesn't matter whether you're someone who sees, someone who feels, someone who is highly empathic, but can't tell that sometimes people are being trying to take advantage, or the other way around, you know. And then we've got people who are over nurturing but can't actually do anything for themselves. They'll nurture all day long, help everybody else, but it's like your life is almost living in poverty. Yeah, you help everybody else, but you never help. You really don't help yourself enough, you know. And it's
So,
then it becomes that you're only happy when you're helping everybody else, but not
yes,
yourself.
it becomes bitter in the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then you get all bitter and twisted, and it's like everybody's taking from me. Yeah, but you're giving it all away, you know. So it allows us. It's realigning all these different senses so that we find that they're all operating and they're functional, because we have so many different types of conscious that we need to use, and so many different types of spirit that we need to use, so that all our senses become functional, and then they become a joy to use. You know, we find different abilities that it's not like you have to go around saying, oh, I've got to use this ability or I've got to use that ability today, because when we turn our conscious on, different elements of our whole life, they become functional. And it means they're always entirely moving, because if something isn't moving, we suck up that version all the time, which is more about someone else and which closes us down. And then we notice less and less and less. So we detune. So that when we, sorry.
So when everything's moving, the abilities are just naturally available. Whatever you need is available when you need it. You don't have to think about it. It just
No,
goes
it's
into
just
action. It's
natural.
like a resource in a way.
It is. And we do have these, and we've got to use these sensories so that they are a resource. And then,
Oh, I think it's an incredible resource. Like in business, I see it is
mm,
enormously powerful. Even just simple things like being able to see things before they happen so that you can take decisions to prevent things from happening.
exactly.
That many people don't have access to that kind of information. It's really powerful in
And it's
business.
why entrepreneurs are always, they're highly sensitive and they use their intuition and instincts to, I mean, you know, in finance, you know,
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's
they're all,
lots of
they're all, they're all on all these entrepreneurs who, you know, family members to talk to, but um, they're all highly intuitive and they're highly instinctive, and that's what they go off, and that's why they're either successful or they blow it.
so
You know?
they're not. So I have a question because people will meet teachers of various different kinds who will be accessing information through these subtle senses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the big questions is how do you tell a good teacher from one to avoid? Especially if you're not, if you're sensitive, but you're not really so kind of familiar with all of this language yet, and you're learning, and
Yeah.
so you can't always tell
I
very
think,
easily. What would
okay,
you say for
the
that?
biggest thing is if your teacher isn't very grounded, okay? And I've met a lot of people who aren't that grounded, you know, and then it's like you end up very floating around in the never never.
So when the teacher is promising all these beautiful things and it's all fluffy and it's lovely and but it's very out there, it can
Yeah,
feel amazing at the time,
yeah, but
but it
it's not
just
helpful for
somehow that
everybody.
doesn't have good consequences, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I mean, it's like everybody's saying, "Oh, my beautiful people," you know, and but to me, that it's just so false. You know,
So it's a feeling then that it's not really sincere,
yeah,
or sometimes when it's
it's
not
not sincere.
grounded, feels that they're saying the words, but they
Yeah,
don't
and
really
it's
know it
like,
from the
yeah,
being.
and it's airy fairy, you know. We've all got
Hmm.
to, it's got to be tangible, you know. There's certain things, you know, and a good example of that was I I met a actually there was a there was an offshoot of a group where I met Sarah, and I was asked to go and talk because they told me, they said, "Can you come and talk about consciousness?" And when I got there, it was all something about the secret, and all these people were trying to. They had their vision boards up, but it's like they were trying. They were all, and they were all women, and they were all trying to basically create this mansion that they all wanted. You know what I mean? And I said, well, what you're trying to achieve, you're trying to achieve it out of thin air.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I said, if you try and do that, you're all going to end up sick. And they said, why? Because I said, you're throwing your energy at something that's completely intangible. You've got to start and build it up. You know,
Yes.
entrepreneurs they don't have all of a sudden they're, one day they got nothing and then the next day they're a millionaire walking down the street. Life isn't like that. You've got to build it out of something.
From
Yeah.
here and now.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
I'm
it's
so with
all,
you.
it's built up in steps. I said,
Yes.
how many of you even own your own home? Wouldn't you be more comfortable, at least if you owned your own home? And there was a lot of them said, well, a lot of us don't even own a home. And I said, well, wouldn't it be better instead of trying to have this mansion that you ascertain to, or you set up your sights to at least own your own home, like something that is affordable? Because I said, even if you owned a house like that, you wouldn't be able to afford to keep it. I said, just all the expenses that you would have on a house like that, you would have to have at least $500,000 a year just to keep up with the expenses.
It's no wonder there are so many disappointed people.
That's right.
Um,
But
yes.
but even that, and I said, okay, hands up if you're sick, really really sick, and there was 6 or 7 people who were really sick, and they're all going to hospital. And I said, well, that's because you're giving away all your energy, you're giving away your conscious, you're giving away your power, you're giving all your life away to something that is intangible. So no wonder you're sick. And I
Yeah.
said, how about we fix that first? And then someone said, no, but that's our lesson in life. I said, it's not your lesson in life to be sick.
That's a whole
I
other
mean,
topic. Not going to
yeah,
go there today because
I know.
the lesson in life thing is one of my um,
So
pet.
all I'm saying is we have
But
to
yeah,
have real
it must be grounded.
expectations
Yeah.
and find grounded teachers who are actually um, making sure that you're not dependent on them. They're actually giving you tools, real tools that you can utilize, and that's the biggest thing, I think. Make sure that you find someone who's giving you real expectations, real tools that help you to develop who you are, what you are, and make sure those everything's nice and grounded. You're not floaty, and
And
you're able to.
the other thing is the manipulating teachers.
Mm,
Some of them are really obvious, and some people know they're being manipulated,
mm,
and they kind of go along with it, which is a tricky. It's horrible to know that and go along with it. But sometimes when if you're a bit naive or a bit inexperienced, I've seen some very, very slick manipulators who do it so
so
beautifully
high.
that it's
Mm.
very difficult to notice it. Do you have advice on how to pick up the
Okay,
smooth, beautiful
okay.
manipulators?
I've seen some incredibly smooth and slick manipulators, and um, if you feel like if you start off down in the front of the room and you're drawn to that person to start with, and then as you go through, that you're moving to the back of the room, well, that's a pretty good indication that that person really isn't for you. You know, because I've gone to, just out of interest, I went. Oh, I've seen some manipulators, and yet after the break, everyone who was down the front was clamoring to get over to the back,
Oh, interesting.
and that I
So if
found
it
really.
feels uncomfortable, the other one I think is that when people play on the fear of missing out, so that it's almost like they're drawing you into their thing because if you don't do it, you're going to miss something. And that's a very clever and very manipulative
Yeah,
way of making you feel uncomfortable about yourself. Whereas really, if you want to buy something, it should make you feel really good about yourself, not make you feel bad about yourself.
that's right, and it doesn't need to cost $1 million. You know, like some of these courses, they're crazy.
Well, I don't mind about the cost if the value is there. I think, value is very different for different people, but the value needs to be genuinely there, and you need
Yeah,
to be
that's
genuinely
right.
happy with the price. It's of value to you, and it's actually going to deliver that and not something else. That feels very important to me. And I think we do know inside ourselves. It's not so much that we don't know, it's that we don't listen, isn't it?
Yeah,
We ignore our
yeah.
own signals.
And you have to really listen. Um, and if you're not sure, you just put your hands on your chest and just move them in and out, and then just hold it there when you go to bed at night, and just say, you ask the question, is this valid?
Oh, good. That's a useful little
Mm.
tip there.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
well, I
hold it.
think that's really important to help us just get a bit more familiar with the subtle energy languages and to be able to read other people and discern more clearly what's
Mhm.
what's what's what in this subtle world, because we're really like at the beginning in many ways. I can see that we're going to learn so much in the future decades about all of this, and where
And
we are
there's so
now
many,
it's very beginner stage for most of us.
yeah, and there's so many people who have some really good information to share. It's like
Yeah.
no person is like the be all and end all. It's so many people have got some amazing stuff to share. So
Like with
it's not.
everything, we all have our little bit of something that we can
That's right.
contribute, and we need to
Like
pick
there's a
up the
lot of
bits.
stuff I'm amazing at, and there's stuff that people are great at.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
we all have
Well,
our little
thank,
specialities.
yeah, thank you for helping to untangle all of that. I think that's actually very useful, really useful topic.
Thanks, Sarah.